The cold wind bit through the thin jacket of the young girl as she huddled under a dim streetlight. Her hands trembled, not just from the chill but from the gnawing hunger in her stomach. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Life had been cruel to her, abandoned as a child, shuffled between foster homes, and now, at just 18, she was alone on the streets with nowhere to go. A few feet away, a sleek black car pulled up silently. The window rolled down, revealing an elderly man with sharp but weary eyes. His face was pale, his breathing slightly labored. He was dressed in an expensive coat, but his posture spoke of exhaustion, not arrogance. He had been watching her for the past 10 minutes from across the street, something in her defeated stance tugging at him. "Are you hungry?" he asked, his voice rough but not unkind. The girl hesitated. Strangers offering food usually wanted something in return. But the pain in her stomach was stronger than her fear. She gave a small nod. The man gestured to the seat beside him. "Get in. There's a diner down the road." She should have refused. Every instinct told her this could be dangerous. But something in his eyes, a sadness, a familiarity with suffering, made her take a step forward. The inside of the car was warm, the leather seats soft against her skin. She kept her arms wrapped around herself, as if afraid the comfort would vanish any second. "You don't have to be afraid," the man said, noticing her tension. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't answer. Words had failed her too many times before. At the diner, he ordered 2 hot meals, steaming soup, fresh bread, a plate of roasted chicken. The girl ate like she had forgotten what a full meal tasted like. Between bites, she glanced at the man. He wasn't eating much, just sipping water with a pained expression. "You're sick," she said suddenly, surprising herself. The man smiled faintly. "Perceptive." "Yes, I am." She didn't ask what was wrong. It wasn't her business. But for the first time in years, she felt a strange connection to someone. He wasn't looking at her with pity or disgust, just understanding. When the meal was over, she expected him to drop her back on the street and drive away. Instead, he turned to her with a quiet intensity. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Names had power. Giving hers meant something. But for some reason, she whispered it. He nodded, as if committing it to memory. Then he said something that would change everything. "I don't have much time left. And I'd like to spend what little I have making sure you don't end up back on that street." She stared at him, heart pounding. Was this a trick? A cruel joke? But the man's eyes held no deceit, only a desperate kind of hope. And just like that, her life was about to take a turn she could never have imagined. The girl stared at the man, her fingers tightening around the edge of the diner table. She had heard empty promises before, people saying they would help, only to disappear when things got hard. But something about the way he spoke, the quiet weight behind his words, made her hesitate. "You don't even know me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you help me?" The man sighed, looking down at his hands. They were thin, the veins standing out against pale skin. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, as if sharing a secret. "Because I know what it's like to have no one." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the diner, the clinking of plates, the murmur of other customers, felt far away. The girl studied his face. He wasn't lying. She had spent years learning to read people, to spot the fakes. This man was different. Still, old habits made her cautious. "What do you want from me?" The man almost smiled. "Nothing you're not willing to give. I have money, more than I could ever spend. But money doesn't fix loneliness." He paused, then added, "I'd like to give you a chance. A real one." She swallowed hard. A chance. 2 words she had stopped believing in a long time ago. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card, sliding it across the table. "This is the address of a safe place, a small apartment I own. It's warm, it's clean, and it's yours if you want it." She didn't take the card. "Not yet." "Just like that? No strings?" "No strings." Her heart pounded. This could be a mistake. But what did she have to lose? Another night on the streets? Another day of hunger? Slowly, she reached out and took the card. The apartment was nothing like she expected. It wasn't some grand penthouse, just a simple, cozy space, a living room with a worn but comfortable couch, a small kitchen, a bedroom with a real bed. The moment she stepped inside, the warmth wrapped around her like a hug. She turned to the man, who stood in the doorway, watching her reaction. "Who are you?" she asked again, this time with less suspicion, more curiosity. He hesitated, then said, "I used to build things. Companies, mostly. Made a fortune. But none of it matters when you're alone." He coughed, a rough sound that made him wince. "The doctors say I have a few months left. Maybe less." The girl didn't know what to say. Sorry felt meaningless. Instead, she just nodded. "You don't have to stay," he said. "But if you do, I'd like to help you. Not just with a roof over your head, with a future." She looked around the apartment again, then back at him. For the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Over the next few days, the man kept his word. He didn't smother her with questions or demands. He simply showed up, sometimes with food, sometimes with books, once with a thick winter coat. He never stayed long, never pushed. On the fourth day, she finally asked, "What's your plan for me?" He sat across from her at the small kitchen table, stirring a cup of tea. "You tell me. What do you want?" No one had ever asked her that. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "You don't have to answer now," he said. "But think about it. Because I can give you the tools, but you have to choose what to build." She stared at him. "Why me? You could help anyone." He smiled, just a little. "Maybe I saw something in you. Maybe I just got lucky." She didn't believe in luck. But for the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, someone else did. The girl woke to the sound of knocking. For a moment, she forgot where she was, the soft bed, the quiet hum of a radiator, the absence of cold concrete beneath her. Then it all came rushing back. The apartment. The man. The fragile hope that had taken root inside her. She pulled on the oversized sweater he had brought her, dark blue, thick, smelling faintly of cedar, and opened the door. He stood there, leaning slightly on a cane she hadn't seen before. His skin looked paler than yesterday, his breathing more labored. But he held out a brown paper bag with steady hands. "Breakfast," he said. "If you're hungry." She took the bag. Warmth radiated through the paper, fresh bread, maybe. The smell made her stomach growl. "You should come in," she heard herself say. He hesitated, then nodded. They sat at the small kitchen table, the girl devouring a still-warm cinnamon roll while the man sipped ginger tea from a thermos. "You don't eat much," she observed between bites. He gave a dry chuckle. "The treatments kill your appetite." He didn't elaborate, and she didn't ask. Some pains were too private to name. Instead, she pushed the other pastry toward him. "Try it. You'll regret it if you don't." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe amusement. He broke off a small piece. They ate in comfortable silence for a while before the girl spoke again. "You never told me how you got rich." The man leaned back, considering. "Started with a single convenience store. Worked 18-hour days. Saved every penny." He tapped the table. "Then I bought a failing laundromat. Fixed it up. Bought another. And another. She frowned. That's it? Just laundromats? Just laundromats. He smiled. People always need clean clothes. She couldn't help but laugh, a short, surprised sound she barely recognized as her own. The idea that this frail man had built an empire from soap and spinning machines was somehow ridiculous and wonderful at the same time. Your turn, he said. Tell me something true. The lightness vanished. She stared at her hands. You don't have to, he added quickly. But she found herself speaking anyway. I had a brother. Once. Her throat tightened. Foster system split us up when I was 9. Never saw him again. The words hung in the air between them. The man didn't offer empty condolences. He simply nodded, as if honoring the weight of what she'd shared. After a moment, he reached into his coat pocket and placed a small flip phone on the table. For emergencies. My number's the only one programmed in. She stared at the phone. A lifeline. A tether to this strange new reality. I'll be gone a few days, he continued. Medical tests. But I'll call. She wanted to ask what kind of tests. How bad it really was. Instead, she just said, okay. 3 days passed with no word. The girl kept busy, cleaning the already spotless apartment, reading the books he'd left, trying not to think about how quiet the world felt without his visits. On the 4th morning, the phone rang. She snatched it up before the second ring. Hello? Silence. Then a cough. A voice that wasn't his. Who is this? A woman's tone, sharp with suspicion. The girl's blood turned to ice. Who are you? A pause. Then, this is Dr. Catry from Mercy General. I found this number in Mr. Eldridge's effects. Are you family? The words hit like a punch. Effects. A word you used when someone couldn't speak for themselves. The girl's mouth went dry. Is he? He's stable, the doctor cut in. But he asked for you. Specifically. A hospital room. Beeping machines. Tubes snaking from pale arms. The man, Mr. Eldridge, looked smaller in the hospital bed, swallowed by white sheets. But his eyes brightened when she entered. You came, he rasped. She stood frozen in the doorway, suddenly unsure. She had no right to be here. No claim to this man. Then he held out a trembling hand. And without thinking, she crossed the room and took it. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and stale air. The girl hovered near the bed, still clutching the man's, Mr. Eldridge's, hand. His skin felt paper-thin, the bones underneath fragile as bird wings. You scared me, she blurted out, then immediately regretted it. She had no right to say that. No right to feel anything. But he squeezed her fingers weakly. Scared myself, he admitted. His voice was rough, like gravel underfoot. Thought this might be the end. A nurse bustled in, checking monitors and adjusting 4 lines. She gave the girl a curious look but didn't ask questions. When they were alone again, Mr. Eldridge gestured to the chair beside his bed. Sit. Please. She sat. The vinyl cushion squeaked under her weight. For a long moment, neither spoke. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence. Then he took a shallow breath and said something that made her blood run cold. I have a daughter. The words hung between them like a guillotine blade. The girl stiffened, her mind racing. Was this why he'd helped her? Some kind of replacement? A stand-in for the child he'd lost? But he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I had a daughter. His throat worked as he swallowed. Car accident. 12 years ago. She was 16. The girl's anger dissolved like sugar in hot tea. She didn't know what to say. The words stuck in her throat. Don't, he said gently. No one's ever known what to say. Not even me. He looked down at their joined hands. After she died, I buried myself in work. Made billions. Built empires. None of it mattered. She thought of the laundromats. The 18-hour days. A life measured in tasks instead of moments. Why are you telling me this? She asked. His eyes, when they met hers, were clearer than she'd ever seen them. Because you deserve to know why I stopped that night. Why I saw you. The truth settled over her like snowfall, quiet and inevitable. She wasn't a replacement. She was a second chance. Not to be his daughter, but to be someone who mattered. Before she could respond, the door swung open. A woman stood in the doorway, mid-40s, perfectly styled hair, a designer handbag dangling from one arm. Her sharp eyes darted from Mr. Eldridge to the girl, her lips pressing into a thin line. Uncle, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I came as soon as I heard. Mr. Eldridge's grip on the girl's hand tightened almost imperceptibly. Claire. His tone was flat. This is unexpected. Claire's smile didn't reach her eyes. Family should be together in times like these, don't you think? Her gaze landed on the girl again. And who's this? The girl opened her mouth, but Mr. Eldridge spoke first. A friend. Something dangerous flickered in Claire's expression. How sweet. She stepped further into the room, her heels clicking against the linoleum. I was just going through your recent financials, Uncle. Some very interesting charitable donations. The air in the room thickened. The girl suddenly understood, this wasn't a family visit. This was an inspection. Mr. Eldridge sat up straighter, wincing as the movement pulled at his fore. My money is mine to spend as I see fit, Claire. Of course, Claire purred. But when you're gone, it becomes the family's money. And we take care of our own. Her eyes slid to the girl again. Not strangers. The threat hung in the air like smoke. The girl stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I should go. Mr. Eldridge reached for her, but she was already stepping back. Claire's smirk made her stomach turn. Wait, Mr. Eldridge called as she reached the door. She paused but didn't turn around. Take the car, he said firmly. It's waiting out front. And I'll call you tonight. Claire's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. The girl nodded once and left, her heart pounding in her ears. The black car idled at the curb just as he'd promised. The driver, a kind-faced man who'd driven her before, opened the door without comment. As the car pulled away from the hospital, the girl pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window. Everything had shifted so quickly. The apartment, the kindness, the fragile sense of belonging, all of it suddenly felt precarious. Her fingers found the flip phone in her pocket. One number programmed in. Would he really call? And if he did, what then? The apartment felt too large without him. The girl paced from the kitchen to the living room, the flip phone burning a hole in her pocket. Every creak of the floorboards made her jump. Night fell. The city lights blinked on outside the window, but she didn't turn on any lamps. She sat in the dark, staring at the phone on the coffee table. When it finally rang at 11:37 p.m., she nearly knocked it to the floor in her hurry to answer. Hello? His voice came through weaker than she expected. You're still awake. She exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Yeah. A pause. Then, Claire is my late wife's niece. She's been positioning herself as my heir for years. The girl swallowed hard. She thinks you're giving money to a stranger. Let her think what she wants. There was steel in his voice now. Listen carefully. There's a safe in the apartment. Behind the landscape painting in the bedroom. Her pulse quickened. Okay. Combination is October 28, 16. My daughter's birthday. His breath hitched, from pain or emotion, she couldn't tell. Inside, you'll find an envelope with your name on it. The girl's fingers went numb around the phone. What is it? Open it tomorrow, he said. With the lawyer. His number is, a sudden coughing fit cut him off. Hey, are you okay? Should I call a nurse? The coughing subsided. No, I'm fine. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're releasing me tomorrow afternoon. Claire doesn't know yet. Meet me at the back entrance at 3 p.m. And whatever you do, don't sign anything she gives you. The line went dead before she could respond. The painting was an unremarkable countryside scene, rolling hills, a setting sun. It swung away from the wall easily, revealing a small wall safe. Her hands shook as she turned the dial. 10, 28. 16. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside were stacks of cash, a few jewelry boxes, and a single white envelope with her name written in neat black ink. She reached for it, then stopped. He'd said to open it with the lawyer. Tomorrow. The girl sat back on her heels, staring at the envelope like it might bite her. Whatever was inside would change everything. She could feel it in her bones. Morning came too slowly. She barely slept, jumping at every sound. At 8 a.m. sharp, she dialed the lawyer's number Mr. Eldridge had texted her during the night. The man who answered sounded exhausted but alert. Ms. Cho's office. It's, she realized with a start that she didn't know how to identify herself. I'm calling about Mr. Eldridge. He said. Ah. The voice warmed immediately. The 3 p.m. meeting. We're all set. Bring the documents. She looked at the unopened envelope on the kitchen table. Right. The documents. The hospital back entrance was deserted except for an orderly smoking near a dumpster. The girl paced nervously, checking her phone every 30 seconds. At exactly 3:05 p.m., a wheelchair appeared in the doorway. Mr. Eldridge looked even paler than yesterday, wrapped in a thick coat despite the mild weather. A nurse pushed his chair while a broad-shouldered man in a suit walked beside them, the lawyer, she assumed. But her relief vanished when she saw Claire following close behind, her designer heels clicking on the pavement. Mr. Eldridge spotted the girl and managed a weak smile. There you are. Claire's eyes narrowed. How convenient. The lawyer stepped forward, extending his hand. Miss, I'm Benjamin Cho. We spoke this morning. He turned to Claire. If you'll excuse us, we have private business to discuss. Claire's smile turned venomous. Anything concerning my uncle's affairs concerns me. Actually, Mr. Eldridge said quietly, it doesn't. The lawyer produced a key from his pocket. There's a conference room at my office. We'll be more comfortable there. As they moved toward the waiting car, Claire grabbed the girl's arm, her nails digging in. Whatever he's promised you, she hissed, you'll never see a dime of it. The girl wrenched her arm free. I don't want his money. Claire laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Everyone wants his money. The law office was all dark wood and leather, the air smelling of coffee and expensive cologne. Mr. Eldridge settled into a chair with visible effort, waving away the water the secretary offered. Let's get to it, he said. The lawyer placed the unopened envelope on the table between them. Miss, this is yours to open. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside were several documents, but the words on the top page made her breath catch. Last will and testament of Daniel Eldridge. Her vision blurred. She forced herself to focus, scanning the dense legal text until one paragraph jumped out. To establish the Rachel Eldridge Foundation, named for my beloved daughter, with, redacted, as sole trustee and beneficiary. Her own name stared back at her where the redaction was. The room tilted. She looked up, her throat tight. I can't. Mr. Eldridge leaned forward. Not the money. Not the properties. You. His voice cracked. I'm giving you the chance to build something that lasts. To help kids like you. Like Rachel. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She wanted to refuse, to say she wasn't worthy. But the look in his eyes silenced her. This wasn't charity. It was a legacy. Across the table, the lawyer cleared his throat. There's one more thing. He slid another document toward her. This needs your signature today. At the top of the page, bold letters declared. The girl looked up sharply. What is this? Mr. Eldridge met her gaze. Claire's been trying to have me declared incompetent. This names you as my medical proxy instead. His jaw tightened. But it's a big ask. If you're not comfortable. She reached for the pen before he finished speaking. The pen scratched against the guardianship papers as the girl signed her name, her real name, the one she hadn't used in years. The weight of what she'd just agreed to settled over her like a physical thing. Mr. Cho collected the documents with a satisfied nod. Excellent. I'll file these immediately. He hesitated, then added, you should know, Claire's attorneys have already petitioned for emergency conservatorship. Mr. Eldridge's hands clenched on the armrests of his wheelchair. On what grounds? Alleged undue influence. Mr. Cho's gaze flicked to the girl. They're claiming mental incapacity and coercion. The air left her lungs. They thought she was manipulating him. Stealing from a dying man. A warm, papery hand covered hers. Ignore them, Mr. Eldridge said firmly. The foundation is airtight. Claire can fight all she wants, she won't win. But the tightness around his eyes betrayed his confidence. The black car idled outside the law office, but before they could leave, Claire emerged from the building, her phone pressed to her ear. When she spotted them, she ended the call with a sharp jab of her thumb. This isn't over, Uncle, she said, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. The courts will see through this charity case of yours. She turned her glare on the girl. And you? Do you really think someone like you can run a multi-million-dollar foundation? You can't even read a restaurant menu without help. The girl flinched. She hadn't realized Claire had noticed her struggling with the diner menu that first day. Mr. Eldridge started to rise from his wheelchair, his face flushed with anger, but the girl placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Let's go, she murmured. As the car pulled away, Claire's final words chased after them, you've signed her death warrant, old man. Back at the apartment, the girl paced while Mr. Eldridge rested on the couch, his breathing labored. The doctor had ordered bed rest, but he'd refused outright. You should eat something, she said, eyeing the untouched soup she'd reheated for the third time. He waved a dismissive hand. Later. Right now, we need to talk about the foundation. A thick folder appeared from his briefcase. He spread the contents across the coffee table, financial statements, property deeds, a list of names she didn't recognize. This is the Rachel Eldridge house, he said, tapping a photo of a sprawling brick building. Formerly one of my corporate offices. I've had it converted. The girl picked up the photo. Through the grainy image, she could make out what looked like dormitory rooms, a commercial kitchen, a library. What is it? A home, he said simply. For kids aging out of foster care. Not a temporary shelter, a real home, with job training, therapy, whatever they need to stand on their own feet. His voice grew stronger as he spoke. The trust covers all expenses. And you'll run it. Her stomach dropped. Me? I don't know the first thing about. You know what those kids need better than any MBA. He coughed into his handkerchief, the fabric coming away speckled with red. But you won't be alone. There's a full staff already hired. They start next Monday. Next Monday. 5 days away. The timeline sent panic crawling up her throat. What about Claire? She asked. If she's contesting the will. Mr. Eldridge's expression darkened. The foundation is legally separate. Even if she somehow overturns my will, which she won't, the house and its funding are already yours. The word echoed in her head. Yours. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text contained only a link. Against her better judgment, she clicked it. A video loaded, security footage from what looked like a hospital room. Mr. Eldridge lay sleeping in the bed, his face slack with pain medication. The camera zoomed in as someone leaned over him, her. The girl watched in horror as the video showed her taking his wallet from the bedside table. Except, she'd never done that. The footage was edited. Badly. Upon closer inspection, the lighting didn't match, the angles were off, but to a casual viewer, it looked damning. Another text appeared. Sign over guardianship by noon tomorrow or this goes to the judge. And the press. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Morning light found her still sitting on the floor, the phone clutched in her hand. She hadn't slept. Hadn't moved. The decision was simple, really. She would refuse the guardianship. Let Claire have it. The foundation would still be hers, that much was ironclad. But when she entered the living room, Mr. Eldridge took one look at her face and knew. Show me, he said. She handed over the phone. Watched as his expression went from confusion to fury. This is absurd, he growled. No one will believe. They will, she interrupted quietly. Because people always believe the worst about girls like me. The truth of it settled between them. She'd spent her whole life fighting assumptions, that she was lazy, dishonest, a thief. This video would confirm every prejudice. Mr. Eldridge reached for his own phone. Benjamin needs to see this immediately. We'll get a restraining order, sue for defamation. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. If we fight, it drags the foundation through the mud before it even opens. She took a deep breath. I'm stepping down as guardian. His face fell. But. It's just paperwork, she said, forcing a smile. The important part, Rachel's house, that stays safe. The look he gave her then, part pride, part heartbreak, nearly undid her. All right, he said finally. But on one condition. She raised an eyebrow. We open the house early. Tomorrow. His eyes gleamed with sudden determination. Before Claire knows what hit her. By noon, the news had spread through the neighborhood. By 3, the first kids arrived, tentative, suspicious, exactly like she'd been just weeks ago. The girl stood on the steps of Rachel's house, watching as a lanky boy with a backpack too big for his frame approached. You in charge here? He asked, eyeing her skeptically. She almost laughed. Instead, she held out a hand. Not in charge, she said. Just the first one here. Behind her, through the open doors, Mr. Eldridge watched from his wheelchair, a quiet smile on his face. The first night at Rachel's house was chaos. 12 kids, some skeptical, some hopeful, all traumatized, wandered the halls like ghosts unsure if they'd found heaven or just another temporary stop. The girl moved between them, showing one how to work the shower, helping another decipher the washing machine instructions, breaking up a near fight over bedroom assignments. Mr. Eldridge watched from the common area, his wheelchair positioned near the fireplace. His breathing had grown more labored throughout the day, but he refused to leave. You should rest, she said during a rare quiet moment, pressing a glass of water into his hand. He shook his head. Not yet. His gaze swept over the room, 2 kids playing chess, another sketching in a notebook, a small group murmuring over pizza boxes. This is what rest looks like to me. She was about to argue when a crash echoed from the kitchen. Both turned sharply. The girl hurried toward the sound, only to find a wide-eyed teenager standing over a shattered plate. I didn't mean to," the boy stammered, already backing away like he expected a blow. "It's just a plate," she said, kneeling to gather the pieces. "We've got dozens." The boy didn't relax. His eyes darted toward the exits. "They always say that at first." Something in his voice, the raw, familiar fear, made her pause. She set the shards aside. "What's your name?" "Javier." "Well, Javier, let me show you something." She led him to a cabinet and pulled out another plate. Then, before he could react, she let it drop. The ceramic shattered spectacularly across the tile. Javier gaped. "See?" She shrugged. "Just a plate." For the first time, the boy's shoulders loosened. A tentative smile tugged at his lips. Behind them, Mr. Eldridge chuckled weakly. "We'll need to buy more plates." Midnight. The house had finally settled into an uneasy quiet. The girl sat at the kitchen island, nursing a cup of tea when her phone buzzed. "Check the security feed." The text came from Mr. Cho. Attached was a grainy image of a figure lurking near the property's back gate. Her blood ran cold. She was halfway to the security monitor when the power went out. Darkness swallowed the house. Somewhere upstairs, a girl screamed. "Everyone stay calm," she called, fumbling for the emergency flashlight they'd strategically placed. Probably just a blown fuse. The lie tasted bitter. Her pulse hammered as she made her way toward Mr. Eldridge's room. She found him struggling to sit up, his face pale in the flashlight's glow. "What's happening?" "Not sure," she whispered. "Someone's outside." Cho sent a window shattered downstairs. Mr. Eldridge grabbed her wrist. "Get the kids to the safe room. Now." "The panic room?" "But." "Go." She went. Rounding up 12 panicked teens in pitch darkness was like herding cats. Some froze. Others tried to bolt outside. Javier, the plate breaker, was the only one who listened immediately. "Come on," he hissed to the others. "You want to die out here?" The threat worked better than reassurance. Within minutes, she had them all crammed into the reinforced basement room Mr. Eldridge had insisted on installing. "Stay here," she ordered. "Don't open the door unless it's me or Mr. Eldridge." Javier caught her arm. "Where are you going?" "To check on." A thud from upstairs cut her off. Then a voice, female, furious. "Claire." The flashlight's beam shook as she crept up the stairs. Claire's voice grew clearer. "Think you can cut me out? After everything I've done for you?" Rounding the corner, she saw them in the hallway, Claire standing over Mr. Eldridge's wheelchair, which had tipped onto its side. He lay half-propped against the wall, his breathing ragged. "You're not well, Uncle," Claire crooned, crouching beside him. "Let me take you home. Sign the papers, and this all goes away." The girl stepped forward before she could stop herself. "Leave him alone." Claire whirled, her perfect hair coming undone. "You." She spat the word like poison. "This is your fault." Mr. Eldridge groaned, trying to push himself up. His lips had a bluish tint. "He needs a doctor," the girl said, edging closer. "Please." Claire's laugh was shrill. "Oh, he'll get one. Right after he signs over control." She pulled a folded document from her purse. The girl lunged. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Claire scratched at her face. She grabbed a fistful of Claire's hair. Somewhere in the struggle, the flashlight shattered, plunging them back into darkness. A guttural sound came from Mr. Eldridge's direction. Then, miraculously, sirens. Claire froze. "You called the police?" "No," the girl panted. "But someone did." The realization hit Claire like a slap. She scrambled up, heels clacking frantically toward the stairs. The girl didn't give chase. She crawled to Mr. Eldridge, her hands finding his face in the dark. His skin was clammy, his pulse thready. "Hold on," she begged. "Just hold on." The paramedics arrived in a blur of lights and shouted questions. They loaded Mr. Eldridge into the ambulance while police took statements. Javier appeared at her side as they wheeled Mr. Eldridge away. "He gonna be okay?" She wanted to lie. Instead, she shook her head. "I don't know." Mr. Cho arrived as the police finished questioning her. "Claire's in custody," he said quietly. "Security cameras caught everything, the break-in, the assault. She won't be bothering you again." It should have felt like victory. Instead, she just felt hollow. "Will he make it?" she asked, voicing her fear for the first time. The lawyer hesitated too long before answering. "You should come to the hospital." The ICU waiting room smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. The girl sat with her knees drawn to her chest, Javier inexplicably still beside her. The other kids had stayed back at the house with staff members. A doctor finally emerged, her face unreadable. "Family of Daniel Eldridge?" The girl stood. So did Javier. The doctor didn't question it. "He's stable for now. The pneumonia is worsening, and his heart is fragile." She hesitated. "He's asking for you." Javier squeezed her shoulder. "Go on. I'll hold down the fort." Mr. Eldridge looked smaller than ever in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines. His eyes fluttered open as she approached. "Kids, okay," he rasped. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Thanks to you." A weak chuckle. "Thanks to you." His hand found hers, cold but steady. "Listen, the house, the foundation, they're yours now. Really yours." Tears blurred her vision. "I don't know how to do this without you." "You already are." His grip tightened slightly. "Just, keep breaking plates when you need to." A sob escaped before she could stop it. Outside the window, dawn was breaking, pale pink light spilling across the floor. Neither of them spoke as the sun rose, their silence saying everything words couldn't. The machines kept beeping. The girl sat by the hospital bed, counting each mechanical breath the ventilator forced into Mr. Eldridge's lungs. 3 days had passed since the break-in. 3 days of doctors murmuring in hallways, of Javier showing up unannounced with food she couldn't eat, of Claire's arrest making tabloid headlines. A nurse touched her shoulder. Visiting hours ended an hour ago. She didn't move. 5 more minutes. The nurse hesitated, then squeezed her shoulder and left. Alone again, the girl reached into her backpack and pulled out a worn copy of The Hobbit, the first book Mr. Eldridge had ever given her. She opened to the dog-eared page and began reading aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure." A sound interrupted her. Not a machine this time, a faint, papery rustle. Mr. Eldridge's hand twitched on the sheets. She dropped the book. His eyelids fluttered, struggling to open. When they did, his gaze was cloudy but aware. His lips moved soundlessly around the breathing tube. "Don't try to talk," she said, grabbing his hand. "You're okay. Claire's in jail. The kids are safe. Everything's." He shook his head weakly and pointed to the bedside drawer. Inside, she found a sealed envelope with her name written in his shaky script. "Now?" she asked. He nodded. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. The letter inside was short. "If you're reading this, I've gone to see Rachel. Don't grieve too long, I was ready. The foundation is yours now, but I've left one last gift at the house. Look under the loose floorboard in my office, the one that creaks. Use what you find however you see fit. And remember, some people need second chances. Others need to know second chances exist. You've always been the latter. D.E." A tear splashed onto the paper. When she looked up, Mr. Eldridge's eyes were closed again, his breathing shallower. The heart monitor's beeps grew further apart. She pressed his hand to her forehead. "Thank you," she choked out. "For seeing me." His fingers curled weakly around hers, one last squeeze, before going still. The monitor flatlined. 1 month later. Snow crunched under Javier's boots as he crossed the Rachel's house courtyard. Inside, the smell of pine needles and baking cookies filled the air. A group of kids decorated a lopsided Christmas tree in the common area while others strung popcorn garlands. He found her in the office, her office now, staring at the loose floorboard. A small metal box sat open on the desk. "You gonna stare at it all day or what?" Javier asked, plopping into a chair. She blinked, coming back to herself. The box contained 3 things: a faded photo of a smiling teenage girl, Rachel, she assumed, a vintage key, and a deed for a beach house in Malibu. "He left me a house," she murmured. Javier whistled. "Dude. Beach parties." She shot him a look. "What?" "I'm joking." He leaned forward. "So what are you gonna do with it?" She turned the key over in her hands. The answer came suddenly, fully formed. "We'll use it as a retreat. For the kids who've aged out but still need somewhere to go on bad days." Javier's smirk softened. "Not bad, boss." The title still didn't feel real. She glanced at the photo again, Rachel's bright eyes, so like her father's. "I wish I could have known her." "You kinda do." Javier stood, stretching. "Now come on. Tree's waiting, and Tommy's already eaten half the decorations." That night, after the kids had gone to bed, she sat by the fireplace with a stack of applications, 37 more foster kids hoping for spots when they expanded next month. The foundation had already received over $2 million in donations since Mr. Eldridge's obituary ran, detailing his final project. The fire crackled. Outside, snow continued falling, blanketing the courtyard in white. Javier reappeared, 2 mugs in hand. "Hot chocolate. Extra marshmallows." She accepted the mug gratefully. "You didn't have to stay." "Yeah, I did." He nodded at the applications. "Any good ones?" She smiled, thinking of the letter hidden in her desk drawer, of the key around her neck, of the 12 sleeping kids upstairs who finally had a home. "They're all good ones," she said. And for the first time since the hospital, the weight in her chest didn't feel like grief, but like purpose.